In a survival scenario, sometimes you may determine that it's best to effect self-rescue instead of waiting for help. For example, if you are stranded in a very remote location and nobody knows where you are, nobody knows you didn't left a game plan to anybody. In that case, to effect self-rescue, that entails you have to navigate the terrain. You have to be able to do some navigation. Of course, if you have a watch, you can use it. If you know the technique, you can use your watch with the sun and you have an instant compass. But sometimes you don't have a watch. Your phone may be out of battery. So in that case, you may tell me, well, I just use a shadow stick. Yes, you can use a shadow stick to determine the east-west direction and the other cardinal directions. But to use that technique, you must wait a certain amount of time, half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour, so you can see the shadow change position. So it's a time-consuming technique, and in a real situation, if you are going to navigate in the terrain, you have to check frequently the direction you are traveling, because if you don't, you will experience lateral drift, and everybody has lateral drift, either left or right, doesn't matter. So to be sure you are traveling in the straight line, you have to check frequently the direction you are traveling. So if you are going to do that with the shadow stick, you travel 10 minutes and then stop. Okay, shadow stick method, 45 minutes waiting. Okay, check the direction. Again, travel 10 more minutes, stop, 45 minutes to do the technique shadow stick. Again, 10 more minutes walking. Okay, stop to check direction, 45 minutes waiting. It doesn't work in a real scenario. So to overcome that problem, I have a solution for you. In this video, I'm going to show how to make a makeshift solar compass, even if you don't know the time. If you don't have any watch, nothing, you don't know the time, you still can make a solar compass to navigate with the sun and have the directions immediately when you need it. Okay, so stay tuned. Welcome to the channel BushcraftLuso. I'm Pedro from Portugal. I hope you enjoy it. So first what I did is to get a log, like three fingers wide or 3 fingers thick. It's more than enough, and I broke that log using leverage, as you can see, and using my knife to do the rest of the job. And then I got a piece with the size I wanted. Then I took my knife and offset it to a little bit to one side and split that log. Then again I offset it to the other side and split again the log, so I could get a board. Next I carved a square notch, and this is important. It has to be square so it holds a piece that we are going to make later. I carved the square notch with my knife on one side of the board. Then I got a little stick and I carved the base of the stick with my knife. And when I was carving the stick, from time to time I was checking if the stick fits on the notch. So you are carving the bottom of the stick to match that square notch, so it has to be also square, and you must check from time to time if it fits. And you want a snug fit. Okay, you want a snug fit so that piece doesn't move, and this is very important. This piece must not move, so the reading is always the same. When I was carving the stick, I made stop cuts on both sides and on the front. So when I put the stick is snug on the notch and is flush on the top, is flush on the board. Okay, and this prevents the stick from moving from side to side or up and down, and it's much better. After I took the stick and I sharpened the top portion of it, I sharpened the top portion, so it became pointy with the point, and no more than an inch tall, maybe less than an inch tall. Okay, you want a very small in height, a very small piece, because when the sun is early in the morning or late in the afternoon, the shadow, if you have a tall stick, the shadow will be so long that the point of it will be out of the board. Okay, so to make the shadow be always in the board, you want a small piece, and that's what I got, and I made it pointy with the point so I can see clearly the top of the shadow. Okay, so the top of the shadow is precise. Then I trim all the excess. I made on all the four corners with my Swiss Army knife saw. I make some notches. And why, are you asking me? Well, if you are going to put the board on the floor is not always the same. It may appear that is leveled, but it's not always the same. So each time you put the board on the floor, the board will be in a different angle to the sun. The same thing if you grab on the board on your hands. So the best way to the board, for the board to be always leveled in the same angle all the time, is to suspend it. So I made those notches. I put some strings. I attach all the strings together, and by doing so, I got the board that's always in the same position, in the same angle, facing the sun when I suspend it. And now we have everything squared away, and it's time to do the markings in the compass. The markings which represent the travel path of the sun. In this case, this will be represented by the travel path of the shadow. And in a real situation, in a real survival situation, I would do this compass on the first day. I'm on that survival situation, and on the second day, as soon as I get up, I will put the compass to the sun and leave it suspended at facing the sun all day. And from time to time, I will check the shadow and mark it on the board. After that second day, on the third day and beyond, I can easily navigate using this compass. Okay, so on the second day, while I'm doing this, I will be doing other chores like improving shelter, collecting more firewood, maybe making char cloth or char material, maybe foraging for some food, making some traps. Well, good morning to you. So this would be like the second day of our survival situation, and as you can see behind me, the sun just rose up recently, maybe 2 hours ago, 1 hour and a half maybe. And now I want to put my compass, my board, all day facing sunlight. And to do this, I have to have a certain aspect or a certain key feature in mind. And this aspect is that in the northern hemisphere, the sun makes an arch to the south, but in the southern hemisphere, the sun does an arch facing north. So having this in mind, I have to put the compass facing south or facing north, depending on the hemisphere I'm at. So, but I don't have a compass yet. How can I do this? Simple. If the sun rose up recently, if you just face that direction, that is more or less east, okay? Because the sun rises east and sets on west. So facing that direction would be more or less east. That being east, 90 degrees to my right is south, 90 degrees to my left is north. So you put the compass accordingly with the hemisphere you are at. So facing south or facing north. So the board will be facing sunlight all day. Okay, what I made here is a tripod, a simple tripod to suspend my compass. And as you can notice, I put an extra loop on top of the notch that is binding or uniting those 4 strings attached to the board. So on the top of that notch, I will create another loop so I can suspend the compass by that loop and have it always level the same way. And I will explain more about this, why I created this another loop on top of the notch. And now it's all set, and it's time to mark the first shadow. If you are noticing, I'm putting the stick facing the sun, not the other way around. So the stick, the side of the side that has the stick has to be facing the sun, so the shadows are casted or are cast on the board and not off the board. As you may notice, I made that notch a little bit more deep, so the stick, that piece which will cast the shadow, is not on the center of the board, but a little bit to the inside of the board and not on the limit, because in the summer, and I'm in the summer now, and you always know what season of the year you are at. In the summer, the travel path of the sun is very big, is very wide, and the first shadows and the last shadows will be even behind that piece. Okay, so the first and last shadows will not be in line with the piece, but a little bit behind the piece. And if the piece is flat on the limit of the board, the first and last shadows in the morning and in the afternoon will be cast outside the board. Another key aspect you have to have in mind is when suspending the board, suspending the compass, you want the first shadow at the beginning of the day, you want the first shadow to cast to one side of the board, and that shadow must be near the limit of the board. Okay, if that shadow is near the limit, especially in summer, because like I told you, the path is very wide, the path of the sun is very wide. By doing so, you are sure that throughout the day the shadow will have place to go along the board and doesn't come off to one side. If you get, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later, if you don't pay attention to this detail and put the board sideways or a little bit twisted to one side, throughout the day the shadow may at some point go off the board, and now you can no longer mark the shadows beyond that point. So I simply suspend the compass on the tripod. I put 4 stakes on the ground, so those stakes are making the board be stable and not rotating with the wind or something like that, and changing position along the day. No, the board has to be always in the same position throughout the day. So I put 4 stakes, but the stakes are not holding the board, are not supporting the board. The board is suspended freely. Okay, it can wiggle a little bit, so it's suspended freely and not supported by by those stakes. Because if it was supported, it will change the leveling of the board. Now we can just hang it there and check the board from time to time to mark the shadows. I will use a piece of charcoal, easy enough to get a piece of charcoal from a burnt fire that we made. You see the tip of the shadow and you are going to mark it. If you touch the board to support it or to grab it and move it a little bit to mark that spot, when you are done, you have to leave it as it were. So you have to check if the tip of the shadow is matching the marking that you just made. Okay, so you know you left the board as it were. Okay, very important, so it doesn't change the traveling path of the sun on that board. Now we are going to mark throughout the day till the sun goes down, and now we have a thing to work with. Other important aspect is the way you put the tripod to begin with. If you are in the northern hemisphere, you know the sun is facing the south, or the path of the sun will be facing the south most of the day. So what I did is to put one side of the tripod, so the tripod is like a pyramid of 3 faces, and I put one side or one face of that pyramid, one open face, facing what I think it's south. So the tripod legs doesn't cast a shadow on the board and obscure the real shadow that I want to mark. Next, you will link the markings with a line, and you can use the tip of your knife to make it easier, to make a groove on the wood before you mark it with a piece of charcoal. And now you have the traveling path of the shadow throughout the day. Last thing we want to do is to mark the cardinal directions accordingly with that traveling path of the shadow. And to do that, we can use 2 aspects very easy to understand. First aspect, you know that the shortest shadow will be when the sun is at its peak. So when the sun is at its peak in the middle of the day in the northern hemisphere, the sun is on the south. If you are facing sun, you are facing south, which will correspond to the shortest shadow on the board. And the shortest shadow, because it's a projection of the sun, will be facing north. If the sun is facing south, the shadow will be facing north. So where the line passes closer to that little stick is where the north is. The second aspect you may use is uniting the last shadows with the first shadows, and that line will be east-west line. And if that line east-west is perpendicular to the north, you have yourself a compass oriented to the right cardinal directions. And this is accordingly with the travel path of the shadow. If you suspend the board in a way that is twisted to one side or the other, that traveling path may be offset, may be in a diagonal shape, like in those images you are seeing. Well, let's check this bad boy out and see how we must operate this solar compass so it gives the correct cardinal directions. Stay tuned. Easy, it's very easy. I'm going to this spot here where the sun shines, and first of all I have to be cognizant and aware of how I grab this line to suspend the compass, because if I grab it like so with the finger below this notch, this will not make the readings consistent, because sometimes I can put my finger a little bit to this side, so and so the board tilts to the other side, or other times I can put the finger more to this side, and so the board tilts to this side, so there is no consistency on the leveling of the board. Okay, so how can we grab this? Or either by this loop, okay, because this loop is above the notch, and so the lines are evenly stretched, or we simply grab by the notch itself. And I personally I prefer this way. I'm in the morning period, early in the morning, so I have to remember, okay, the sun rises east. This is east, this is west. The sun rises east. If the sun rises east and the shadow is a projection, it's like a mirror. If the shadow is a projection, the shadow will be on the other side, or on the opposite side. So if the sun rises east, the shadows in the morning are facing west, okay, to the opposite side. So this will be the quadrant of the morning, or the side of the morning, the west side, and this side, which is east, will be the afternoon side. So if I'm in the morning, this shadow is wrong to be here on this side, so I have to rotate the compass. I simply rotate the compass till the shadow is in the right side of the compass. Okay, now the shadow is on the morning side. Okay, it's on the morning side. Now what do I have to do? It's like simply putting the needle in the doghouse. It's like a compass. You have, for example, you have this compass and you want to put the needle on the doghouse. This is the same concept, same concept. So you want the tip, the very tip of the shadow to barely touch this curved line. Okay, you rotate the compass till the very tip barely touches the curved line, and by doing so, this is like, it's the same concept like putting the needle in the doghouse. So now the compass must be set in the right position, okay, must be orientated in the right way, and we can simply confirm with our real compass, and there you have it. Okay, very close. And I want the very tip of the point barely touching the line. So not like this. This is overstepping the line. This is not touching the line. Okay, and this is on top. This is on top of the line. I don't want the tip on top of the line. I want barely touching it, because it was this way I marked yesterday the shadows throughout the day. I marked with a little dot barely touching the point of the shadow, not on the top of the shadow, but barely touching it. So let's check it out in another location and in another time of the day. So you are going to rotate the board, the compass, and you see the shadow moving, and you are going to place it where the tip of the shadow barely touches the line. Okay, okay, pretty close, pretty close right there. Okay, as you can see. Now you might be asking, how can I be sure this is the right spot for the tip of the shadow to touch the line, and for example not this, like this? And if you see, the north is that way, but if you do like this, the north is like this way. How can I be sure? Simple, because what you would do in a real survival situation is beginning navigating in the morning. In the morning, you get up, you break down camp, and start the navigation process using your solar compass. And if you do that, you are going to see the first shadows like here, and you are going to check the compass from time to time with some frequency, because you have to be sure the direction you are traveling, so you have to check it often. And while you check it, you are going to see that first the shadow is touching here, then here, then here, then here. So if you made this progress till here, for example, now the shadow, the next time you check it, the shadow must be here. It cannot be behind the other shadows that you already done. Okay, so the shadow doesn't move back. It moves only in this direction across the day. And if you check it frequently or often, you will not have this problem. Okay, so once again, another location, different time of the day, same thing, real simple. Let me just move here so I can shield the compass from the wind. So we are in the middle of the afternoon, so the quadrant that we are going to use is this one. This is the morning quadrant, this is the afternoon quadrant. Okay, so the shadow has to be here. So I'm going to rotate the compass. Okay, till the point, the tip of the shadow, the point of the shadow barely touches the line. Okay, and this indicates me that these are the cardinal directions. real close. Okay, as you can see. As you can see, the travel path of the shadows throughout the day, which represents also the travel path of the sun, it's not a straight line from east to west, but a curvature. Okay, this is the real path of the sun, or the shadows. It's not a straight line, but a curvature. And this curvature will change along the year, because the path of the sun will also, and the angle of the sun will also change throughout the year. And this means this compass is to be used when you make it. For example, in a survival situation, you make this compass and you can use it for a few days, for a week or 2 weeks, no problem at all. But if you make this compass and try to use it 3 or 4 weeks later, for example, a month later, it will not be accurate anymore, because the curvature will have changed a little bit. The path of the sun will be changed a little bit. So this compass is to be used on the occasion when you make it. Okay, and you can use it for a week, 2 weeks, a few days, for example, the duration of a survival situation, no problem at all. So I hope you like it. I'm Pedro from Portugal, and this is BushcraftLuso channel. More videos to come. Stay tuned.